You're born in a dirt floor cabin in Kentucky. Your mother dies when you're 9. You teach yourself to read by firelight, walking miles to borrow books you'll return with pages memorized. You split rails. You lose elections. You bury your first love in the frozen ground and wonder if you'll ever stop seeing her face. You're gentle, melancholic. You tell jokes to keep the darkness at bay. You hate violence. You've seen what it does, watched your father's fists, felt your own helplessness. You promise yourself, never that. Never cruelty for its own sake. You're nobody. A backwoods lawyer people underestimate until you speak. Then they hear something that terrifies them. Intelligence sharpened by poverty. Compassion tempered by loss. 7 candidates. 1 nightmare. The country doesn't want you. It's out of options. The South is threatening secession. The North is fragmenting. They need someone moderate enough to hold it together, strong enough to take the blame when it fails. You win. 4 months later, before you even take the oath, 7 states secede. By the time you're inaugurated, there's already a Confederate government. You place your hand on the Bible and realize there is no country anymore, only the idea of one. Your first decision, do you let them go or do you fight? If you let them go, the United States ends. Democracy fails. Slavery expands. Everything the founders died for evaporates. If you fight, hundreds of thousands will die. Fathers, sons, boys who've never held a rifle. You're a man who hates violence. You choose war. Fort Sumter falls. You call for 75,000 volunteers. They come singing. You watch them march and think, I'm sending children to die. The first battle is Bull Run. You expect a quick victory. Instead, your army breaks and runs back to Washington in panic. Civilians who came to watch the battle with picnic baskets flee in terror. That night, you receive the casualty reports. 481 Union dead, 1,011 wounded, 1,216 missing. You read every name. You picture every mother. You don't sleep. The second night, you read the reports and eat dinner. The third week, you read them and sign more orders. By the second month, you stop reading the names. You just look at the numbers. You tell yourself, if I break, more die. If I hesitate, this drags on. The only mercy left is speed. That's when you realize the gentle man you were is now a luxury you can't afford. The dead pile higher. Antietam, 22,717 casualties in a single day. The bloodiest day in American history. You visit the battlefield and see bodies stacked like cordwood, the ground black with blood. You go back to Washington and issue the Emancipation Proclamation. Not because the time is right, because you need it. The war is bleeding. You dry. You need a moral reason that justifies this ocean of death. You need the black soldiers who'll fight for their own freedom. You need Europe to stay neutral. It's the right thing. You know that. But you also know you're doing it because you need it. And that knowledge sits in your stomach like a stone. Your generals lose battles through incompetence. You replace them. They lose again. You replace them again. You cycle through commanders like they're defective equipment. McClellan, Pope, Burnside, Hooker. Each one fails. Each one costs you thousands of lives. Finally, you find Grant. He drinks. He's ruthless. He doesn't care about elegance or honor. He just wins by drowning the enemy in bodies. You promote him. Someone tells you, Grant's a butcher. He's losing more men than any general in history. You reply, I can't spare this man. He fights. You hear yourself say it and realize you've become someone who measures success in acceptable losses. Gettysburg, 51,000 casualties in 3 days. You're supposed to give a speech at the dedication. You write it on the train, 2 minutes, 272 words. That these dead shall not have died in vain. You say it because it has to mean something. Because if it doesn't, then you're just a man who industrialized slaughter. But late at night, in your office, you know the truth. They died because you couldn't find another way. They died because you kept choosing war. Your son Willie died too. Fever. You held his hand. You thought, God is punishing me. This is payment. But you keep signing the orders. Your wife Mary is unraveling. She sees Willie's ghost. She spends money you don't have. She's drowning, and you can't save her because you're too busy signing death warrants for deserters, boys who ran because they couldn't stand the horror anymore. You sign them anyway, because if you don't, the whole army crumbles. You stop visiting the hospitals. You stopped writing personal condolence letters. You stopped because if you felt every death, you'd collapse, and you can't collapse because 600,000 men are waiting for orders. One night, you look in the mirror and don't recognize the face staring back. Hollow eyes, deep lines. You're 56, but look 70. That's when you understand. You didn't survive the war. You died in it. What's walking around is just the office of the president wearing your skin. Grant launches the Overland Campaign. The Wilderness. 29,800 casualties. Spotsylvania. 30,000 casualties. Cold Harbor. 13,000 casualties. In 1 month, Grant loses 55,000 men, more than Lee's entire army. The North howls for his removal. They call him the Butcher. They call you a tyrant. You don't remove him because you've learned the terrible mathematics. Grant is trading 2 Union lives for every Confederate life. The South has fewer men. Eventually, the equation ends with Union victory. You've become the kind of man who thinks in equations written in blood. You win re-election. Sherman takes Atlanta. Sherman burns his way to the sea, destroying everything: crops, homes, rail lines, civilian infrastructure, total war. You don't stop him because you need this to end, because every day it continues. More die, because mercy to the rebellion is cruelty to the Union. You're no longer making choices. The role is making them through you. The 9th of April, 1865, Lee surrenders. You've won. 620,000 Americans are dead. The country is preserved. Slavery is destroyed. You should feel something: relief, joy, triumph. You feel nothing. Just exhaustion, and the knowledge that you've signed more death warrants than any president in history, that you've authorized destruction on a scale America had never imagined. 5 days later, you go to Ford's Theater. You're watching a play. You're laughing, actually laughing, for the first time in years. Then, John Wilkes Booth puts a bullet in your brain. They drape your coffin in flags. They call you the Great Emancipator, the savior of the Union, the martyr president. They're not wrong, but they're mourning a symbol, not a man. The man died years ago, somewhere between the first casualty report and the moment you stopped feeling them. What they're burying is what you became, the role that consumed you, the duty that erased you, the terrible machinery of power that required you to sacrifice not just your life, but yourself. The gentle boy who read by firelight and hated violence, he died at Fort Sumter. What lasted until Ford's Theater was just a ghost piloting the office, and history will never thank the man you were. Only the monument you became.